is going on, my home studio engineers? Thank you so much for checking out the Home Recording Network. I am not showing my face today. That's okay. You guys don't need to see my face anyways. The reason I'm making this video is because after I released my video on Logic versus Luna, someone had requested that I make a video showing just how to navigate Luna a little bit. So I wanted to get this video out pretty quickly. So that's the reason I didn't set up my camera or anything. But I just want to show some basics on, how we get around Luna, where everything is inside Luna and things like that. So if you want to see the original video on the differences between these DAWs, Logic and Luna, I'll leave that up in the top corner so you can check that out. And I go through a lot of the differences and also just my opinions on both of these DAWs. So let's hop into some of the workflow in Luna, how you get around inside this DAW, and just some of the basics. This should look pretty familiar. We have a timeline view in every DAW. And let's just go over that real quick. The view up here, I'll just go over two of them. So we have our normal timeline view here, which shows you all your tracks and the beats and bars and measures and all that good stuff. And then next to it, we have our mixer view, which shows all our channel strips with all our plugins. And what I like to do and how I work is I like to have this up on another screen. So if you come up to window up here and you press new alternate window, you can actually get a second window up and maybe make it your mixer and throw that on your other monitor. I like to work with my timeline on one monitor and then the mixer on the other monitor. It makes things quicker for me. And up here we have the normal items you'd see in basically any DAW. So we have our BPM that you can set here. We have our metronome, which you can turn on or off right up here. We have our counter. So this is telling you where your marker is in the song, what measure it's at. Then you have your start, your play, your record, all those normal buttons you see in every DAW. Now on the top, all the way over to the right, we have some workflow buttons. And what these do, basically change the controls below this transport bar. So right now we are in the record workflow. And here you can do a couple things. So first of all, the click to cue. So this allows you to change the volume of the metronome. Now you can't change the tone of the metronome like you can in Logic or some other DAWs, but of course you can make it, louder or quieter. So here our monitor is basically the main click that you're going to hear, and you can bring the volume down or up. And you also have some cues. So if you maybe want the click to be a different volume in the drummer's cue, you can, change that accordingly here. Or if the guitarist or vocalist maybe doesn't want the cue, you can set them up on another cue. So maybe they don't have the click. We also have our pre-roll and post-roll, and I use this a lot. So when I hit record, maybe I want a 1 or 2 measure count in before the system starts recording. You can set that up right here, select how many measures you want, and then turn that on or off. Now, specifically on how to, hit record on a track when you're ready to record, it's a little bit different than Logic. So in Logic, it was super simple. You just hit the R key and you'd start recording. In Luna, it's a little bit different. You actually have to arm the track and hit Command Spacebar. And if you have a numeric keypad, you can just hit the 3 key. So let me show you how that would go. If I wanted to record this vocal track, I'm going to arm the track right here and then hit Command Spacebar. For me, I just have a numeric keypad and I just use the 3 key, just so it's one button. So that's been a little bit to get used to, coming from Logic. Another helpful tip, if you do have a numeric keypad, The 7 on that keypad will turn the click track on and off. So we could see me doing that right now. And that's one nice little button to have handy. Another button we see up in the record workflow is their arm mode. You can turn that on or off. And this is their accelerated real-time monitoring, which allows you to just record through any of the UAD plugins with barely any latency, which is a great feature to have. And of course, you could do this anyway in any other DAWs using just their console and their interfaces. Another workflow we have right beside record is their MIDI, which I'm not going to talk about at all because if you've watched my channel at all, I don't work with much MIDI, mostly live instruments. We also have our edit workflow, which I'm never really in because I'm usually using key commands, but this is all your cut, copy, paste, all those commands you need for editing. And the last one is their mix workflow, which is great because it shows basically all your tracks just combined together or real scrunched up so you can kind of see, where you are in the project. The most important thing about this workflow is this is where your mix down button is, or if you're coming from Logic, your bounce option. So for Luna, if you're trying to bounce a project, you need to actually select the area that you want to bounce. So I would kind of select the whole project if I'm going to bounce this whole thing out, hit the mix down button, and by default, it is going to mix down the main output. But if you go in here, you can actually select more than just the main output, and you can maybe just bounce your stems along with it, or maybe just your drum tracks. This is how you bounce tracks in Luna. So if you're bouncing a whole project or you just want to export, certain tracks out, the mix down is where you're going to do it. So say we just wanted to bounce the whole song. We have our main selected, and then down here is where you can name it. You can choose the format that it's in and all that good stuff. And right here is where you would save that. So I believe Luna actually makes a folder for you that it bounces to, just like Logic creates its bounces folder. I believe Luna also creates one for you in your project as well. Let's talk about moving around the project a little bit. So right where the measures are is where you want to click, to begin playing. So if I want to begin playing this song at measure 9 here and take a listen, I can click right here, measure 9, and start playing. And then up above is your loop. So if I want to loop just a specific group of measures, I can come in here and make a loop just like you do in most other DAWs and start playing. And now if I want to get rid of that loop section, you just click down by the measures. Now, if you click above the measures, it's just going to select whatever loop area you have set. So if I click up here, it's going to select that area that I set earlier. So that's how you move around a little bit. Now, I've had people ask, how do you change this main tool to like a scissors tool or a marquee tool like you can in Logic? So in Logic, you can make your pointer into a bunch of different tools, and I really do like that in Logic, but you really don't need it in Luna. So let me show you why. First of all, I'll just make this a bit bigger. So in Luna, your tool is basically always a marquee tool. So there is no pointer tool. If you want to move around, like I said, you have to click up here in the measures. But if we wanted to do some editing, like maybe cutting something, so you can just select part of a region and you can hit B for break. That will break those regions into 2 separate regions. Maybe we want to just delete this little bit. If you have just a little bit of this region selected, I can hit the delete key. It's just going to delete that little bit. And maybe we wanted to add some fade. So if you just select the beginning of this region and hit F, boom, it's going to put a fade right where you selected. Let's say we wanted to do some crossfade. So let's break this region again. Pretend it's like a drums region or something. And we actually want to fade this in or pull it closer. Now we can just select little area in between here and hit F, and it's going to put a crossfade in, and you can go in and kind of adjust where that fade is. Let's talk about the region itself and the options within the region. So if we actually just select the region at the top here, it's going to select that whole region, and we can move it around. You could actually do fades from right here when we have this selected if you wanted to. So we could fade in. And then we have our Q up here, which if you're doing anything with quantization, so if maybe you want to quantize some drums or some bass guitar, that's where those options come in here. You can actually use clip gain on the region. So there's no audio in this region right now, but if there was, we could actually turn the volume of the region up or down if we're looking to gain stage something. And we also have this semitones option, which actually allows you to tune the region. Now, I've never found a use for this, but say you had a singer and just one note was a little flat, you could actually go and select, let's say we had a note right in here. I'm going to hit B to break, and now we could actually tune the region up or down semitones. Again, I've never really had a use for that, but I'm sure there's one out there since it's in the DAW. Again, just like Logic or most other DAWs, if you come to the bottom of the region or the bottom corners, you can actually shorten them up or lengthen them if you do have, additional audio out there. So that's how you work with the regions themselves. Let's move on to some other basics. Let's talk a little bit more about moving around. So if you hit Command in the bracket keys, this will zoom you in and zoom you out of the project. And if you have an Apple mouse, or maybe any mouse does this, but Option and scrolling up and down will actually do the same thing, which is kind of cool. Another helpful key command, Control Option, and then the up and down arrows will actually expand the tracks. It's a very quick way to do this. And if you hold down Control and Option again and do up and down on your mouse, this should also do the same thing. Just to be clear, that's Control Option and then scrolling up and down on your mouse. So, okay, let's move on to some of these items up at the top left here. So here we have our grid. So do we want to see it in 16th notes, 8th notes, all that? That's going to change your grid value. The snap option here is going to tell you if your marker will snap to the closest beat or not. So if I'm moving around the project here with snap on and I select somewhere, it's going to snap my marker to the nearest grid value. With it off, it's just going to snap it to exactly where I put my mouse. So when you want snap on, it's probably when you're editing and moving regions around, because this snap will also apply to, things like region placement. Let's zoom in on the tracks themselves in the timeline view here. So here we have a couple options. So first, the view. So automatically, by default, this is set to clips, and this is the view we're used to where it just shows the waveforms. But if we click on clips here, we can change it to a few different things. Let's change it to warps. Now, this is sort of like flex time in Logic. So this will put little markers by all your transients so that you can move them around and do your editing. But it does work much better than flex time does, if I do say so myself. But we can do other types of views as well. So we have our volume automation view. This is where you would do any volume automation. We have mute, pan automation down here. And we can also do automation on plugins just like you can in most other DAWs. So on this track, we see that we have some automation on the band 1 frequency in this EQ. If we click on that, we can see the automation that we've done. Another option we have down here is our automation mode. So do we want this to be in read, touch, and so on? We also have our warp mode. So we have our polyphonic, monophonic like we do in most other DAWs. The special ones here are the Luna made algorithms, though, specifically the Luna Razor Blade, which you should use when you're editing drums. This is their algorithm that is made to take special care of the beginning of your drum transients, which Logic doesn't do very well. We also have our takes and versions over here. Maybe I better use a different track to show this. So let's open up this bass track. So we can see that we have a bunch of different versions in here. And versions and takes are really the same thing. I usually just keep it with versions. But as you can see here, we recorded a bunch of different takes here. And at the end, we came up with one comp and comped all the best of all of them together to make one final version. Now, Luna does not yet have take folders like Logic does, so you actually need to create a new version. If you're doing multiple takes, you need to create a new version and start recording on that version. If you just record over the top, whatever you recorded is going to basically replace anything that you had recorded prior. So what I do is typically just, if I want to record another bass track, is just hit the plus. That's going to add a new version there, and then we can start recording. And then at the end, I will actually just select all the different takes or regions from the takes that I like, and then put them up on the final comp. Let's show you how I would do this just real quickly, because this is something that really held me back from trying out Luna, but it is really quite simple. So say I wanted to take this beginning part from version 4. So I'm just going to select the part that I want to take. I'm going to hit C for copy. You don't have to do Command C in Luna. And then go up to the new version I created and just hit V to paste it. So again, with Luna, it's just C and V to copy and paste. But then let's say I wanted to take another part from, let's say, version 2. Say I wanted to take this here. So we'll hit C to copy, go back up to version 5, our new version, and hit V. And then we could actually just fade these into each other like we showed before by doing a little fade. Hit F, and there we go. Before we wrap up, I just want to do a quick walkthrough of the mixer view. So I have everything collapsed here so that I can go through it. But first we have the input. So this is going to be the input of your UAD interface, where we can throw unison plugins and preamps on there. We have the utility, which allows us to do things like invert the phase or decrease the gain. We have our tape simulation. So Oxide comes free with Luna, but they do have another product if you want to buy some of the other tape simulators. We have our console. So if you have the API console emulation, you could throw that in here. That is an add-on that I actually don't have. We have our inserts, which is going to be what you're used to. So all your plugins, and you can use third-party plugins with Luna. So you should be able to use any of the plugins you already own. We have our sends. So if we want to send our tracks to effects sends or buses, we can do that here. We have our cues, which I don't use at all. And we have our output, so where the track is sent to. So we can send our tracks to buses or effect sends here if we wanted to. And then below that, we have our faders, which you should all be familiar with. And these have our pan knobs on them. And we could also solo or mute our tracks from here as well. One thing that I wanted to touch on real quickly before we wrap up is the selection of tracks in this mixer view. So in Logic, if I wanted to grab all 3 of these kick tracks, I would just select here and it would allow me to grab them all. But in Luna, you can't do that. So you actually have to come up to the tracks view in the top left here. And what I would do if I wanted to select all 3 of these is select the first one, then hold down Shift and select the last one. And it's going to grab all 3 of them. And that's going to allow me to come down here and move the volume for all three of them. Now, if I wanted to select a larger group, maybe I wanted to select all my drums, I would grab the first one again, hold shift, and then come down to the last track. Now, if I wanted to just select specific tracks here to mess with the volume or do whatever, I would actually hold down Command and then go and start selecting tracks. And that's going to allow me to just select specific tracks, and then I could go and adjust the volume for these up or down. Now, there's so much more to explain, and this has already turned into a longer video than I wanted it to be. But if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to reach out and ask me, and I'll either answer them for you if I know the answer, or I'll make another video. But thanks for watching, guys, and happy mixing. Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to download your free Ultimate Home Studio Mix Guide with your go-to EQ and compression settings for all your tracks. And also be sure to register for my free online mix training that I hold a couple times a week so that you can learn how to make radio quality music from your home without breaking the bank.